All right, SBC, it's great to welcome you to the Oklahoma Baptist University booth. My name is Heath Thomas. I'm the president of Oklahoma Baptist University. And for the next few days, we'll be having panel events where we're talking about things that matter to the life of the local church, things that matter to Oklahoma Baptist, to the state conventions, and also to the wider SBC. And with that in mind, I am so excited to have three incredible leaders here at the convention. And I want to introduce each of these to you. So we have Dr. David Manner, who's immediately to my left. He is the executive director, president of the Kansas-Nebraska convention. He is an OBU alum, which I'm excited about. And you've been in the role for how long as president?
Yeah, well, as executive director, I've been just 3 months, but I've been on convention staff for 21 years. So just now I've gone into that position.
Well, it's exciting to have you here, and congratulations. We'll be praying for you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And immediately beside David, we have Dr. Hance Dilbeck, who's the executive director treasurer of Oklahoma Baptist. And we're excited to recognize that he's also moving to be president of Guidestone Financial Services. So congratulations on that. It's great to have you here, Hance.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
And then finally, we've got a good friend to OBU and a good friend to Oklahoma, Texas, and Colorado Baptist, Dr. Nathan Lorick, who is the president of Southern Baptist of Texas Convention. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have you here to talk about this.
Thanks for having us.
All right, guys, so we are here at the Southern Baptist Convention, right? A lot of things going on right now. And all of you have served faithfully in local church, pastored. All of you know the life of the local church, but you are leading state conventions. So talk to us a little bit about, as a president leader of state conventions, let me ask you a basic question. What unites us in our state conventions? What draws us together as Baptists, whether we're talking about Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, what draws us together and unites us? Hance, why don't you lead off on that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's natural to be divided, but it's supernatural, really. It's of God to be united. That's not the normal way of the world. And what unites us, first of all, is the gospel of Jesus Christ and our common doctrinal commitments around the Baptist faith and message. So we share that one foundation, commitment to Christ, the gospel, and our doctrinal values. And then we share the mission of advancing the gospel. And those are the two things that really, the two rails that keep us together: a desire to advance the gospel to our neighbors and the nations, and deep doctrinal commitments that bring us unity in that faith. And that question about unite is so important for the state conventions, because state conventions have the opportunity to be relational. We actually have a real fellowship where we know each other, we work together, we share time, we share our money, we share our work. And in the New Testament, those are the practical elements of foundation, really, the sharing of time and money and work. And those are the things that will always unite us.
Nathan or David, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. Hance has already kind of laid out that theological foundation. I think that's what unites us all. Sometimes when you talk about what unites us, we have to think what divides us. And some of those, obviously national politics, when that enters into our convention, that can divide us. Local church politics, convention politics, those things divide us. But I know each of our conventions are different, and then how we respond and how we relate to each other. But one of the things that unites our convention together is that collaborative spirit. An example, we have 30 counties in Kansas and over 50 counties in Nebraska that have no evangelical work at all. Wow. I'm not talking about just no Southern Baptist work, just no evangelical work. And so if we spend too much time on those things that divide us, there's no way we're going to impact those counties for the gospel.
Wow, and gospel advance is absolutely critical to what we do. That's why we exist, to share the gospel, to expand the gospel, to advance the gospel to the nations. And really, in Texas, the nations are coming to the state. So talk to us a little bit about, from your perspective as Southern Baptist of Texas, how are you uniting around the gospel to get the gospel to the nations?
Yeah, I think it's important that we keep on the forefront of our mind what it was like to be lost. Because when we remember what it was like to be lost and the hopelessness we felt, there's something that should rise up within us as believers, as leaders, as churches, to say, as we've said as SBC for the last 2 years, gospel above all, man, that we're to be focused on the mission. And when I begin to think about drifting away from the mission, I have to think about the lost people that God's brought in my own life. And it always brings me back to the place to say, I wake up in the morning because God's called me to be an ambassador of the gospel. I lie awake at night because God's given me a burden for lost people that we are to unite together as churches. And as a network, man, we have to remember, yes, relationships are key. And somebody, Zig Ziglar or John Maxwell, said, everything rises and falls on leadership. I think everything rises and falls on relationships. So we have to build those relationships, be strategic in collaboration. But also I think it's important, what unites us as a convention for the SBTC, number one, it's the Word of God. It is the foundation for everything we do. And for us, we're a confessional fellowship, which means the BFNM 2000. These are the parameters that we can say we have gospel partnership and kingdom advancement through partnering together, linking arms and hearts together to take the gospel to almost 20 million lost people in Texas.
Wow. 20 million lost people.
Almost, yeah.
Wow. I love what you're saying about the Baptist Faith and Message. We are a Baptist united around doctrine and confessional commitments. Oklahoma Baptist University, Baptist Faith and Message 2000 School. We are proudly owned and operated by Oklahoma Baptists. We love that partnership. We love that connection. But because we are owned and operated by Oklahoma Baptists, one of the things, Hance, that you know and I know is, Oklahoma Baptists have partnered together, and they've said education's important, right? And so Oklahoma Baptists give to cooperative program dollars so they can help fund a place like OBU and some of our other affiliates. Talk to us a little bit more. I mean, that's just one example, but talk to us a little bit more about what is the relationship between a state convention and a local church? Because sometimes that can get really fuzzy. I've just given an example. Oklahoma Baptist partnered together to give to OBU, to equip, so we can live all of life, all for Jesus. That's right. But what are some other ways that state convention impacts the life of a local church?
Yeah, that's a great question. Of course, part of our doctrinal foundation is the autonomy of the local church. We believe that local churches operate under the lordship of Christ, and they choose to partner with state conventions and with the national SBC in order to advance the gospel most effectively. And most people from the outside that look at our system think there's no way that could ever work, But it's a commitment to advancing the gospel that challenges people to share their resources.
Right.
And to tolerate some differences for the cause of that one sacred effort of getting the gospel to the nations. When Baptists in Indian Territory, which became Oklahoma, first began to work together, they said, we've got to cooperate to get the gospel to the destitute people that need to hear it. We've got to get together because our stronger churches need to help our weaker churches. And we've got to cooperate to train leadership.
Right.
And so one of the first things Oklahoma Baptist did was start Oklahoma Baptist University, because we know training leadership is always important. And so, in other words, the local churches said, most of what God has called us to do, we can do on our own under the lordship of Christ. But there's some things we could do more effectively if we cooperated together. And that's what state conventions and what our national convention are all about.
Yeah. And David, do you see things the same way? Does it look the same way in Kansas-Nebraska?
Yeah, sure. I think sometimes we forget that our convention exists for the local church. We're there to resource them. It's not a top-down, except that the local church is on the top.
Right.
So we are resourcing them, and so sometimes we forget to ask them what they need. We assume we know what they need, so we've been redirecting. I know Nathan did this in Colorado too, rethinking our convention about the future, and then asking more questions, and then collaborating with larger churches and smaller churches, some of those that need resources. Why do we on the convention level need to create all those? Why can't we resource those churches that are already successfully doing that and use them to actually then raise up some of those churches that need that assistance. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to focus it back to the local church. We partner with our associations, those directors of missions, associational mission strategists to do that, with our campus ministries, with our church planner catalysts and church planners, so that we're not all moving in different directions or doing things that are redundant either, so that we can resource those local churches.
And that keeps things streamlined and moving in the right direction. Is that similar to what you see for the Southern Baptist of Texas, or do you see something different?
Yeah, well, we have to remember that the Lord Jesus didn't give a state convention or even the SBC the Great Commission. He gave it to the local church. Right. And so our role is not to try to play the role of the church. Our job, our role as a state convention, as a network, a family of churches, is to come alongside of the church, helping them fulfill the Great Commission and the vision that God's given their pastor leadership. And so what happens and what has happened, I think, over the years is some of that's been a little bit of a role reversal. And so for many state conventions, for example, and this is not a criticism, I think it's just a reality, we staffed with people who were experts. And so what we say now is we're not experts, man. We're cheerleaders, encouragers, but we want to make the pastors the heroes. We want to make these guys who are out there leading. And so when we get it right and when we're at our best is when we remember the church's mission is the Great Commission. Our mission is to come alongside of help, support, pray for, resource, etc.
Man, I love that vision. I love that heartbeat because as president of OBU, one of the things that I see is OBU needs to leverage everything that it is to advance the gospel and serve the local church. We're raising up doctors and lawyers and scientists and every aspect of our sphere of our society. We're raising up followers of Jesus who will go into our churches and serve faithfully and minister effectively. That's what we want to see too. So I love that idea of resourcing the church. Now, we are at the SBC, the Southern Baptist Convention. And this is the last question I want to ask you guys. What in the world is the relationship between a state convention and the national convention? Is there a relationship? Do you do your own thing? How does it all fit together?
Yeah, well, I think it's, in the Southern Baptist life, we've been blessed in a greater way than any other organization or denomination in the world. We have kind of 4 tiers. The local church is the headquarters, that's been mentioned. And then you have local associations, state conventions, and national. And when we are at our best, we're all working together, and we're in unity. And but at the same time, we know there's complexities to that, and there's complexities to those different layers of how ministry is carried out, how resources are given. And then we find ourselves in a situation, Dr. Thomas, like today, where there's a lot of challenges and obstacles in SBC and culture. And so as one of my mentors said, a lot of times when the SBC sneezes, the state convention gets the cold. And what that means is we have no control over what happens at an SBC. But a lot of times we have to walk with pastors afterwards in the aftermath. And so when you have pastors in churches that are on either side of the issues, challenges that we're facing, we have to be able to engage relationally with those on all sides of that and say, hey, let's remember the mission. Let's remember that we were not created to have conventions. We were created to advance the gospel, right. The Great Commission. And what I'd love to see is a lot less people trying to be like Martin Luther and a lot more of us trying to be like Jesus, and walking forward and really going, hey, at the end of the day, there are millions and millions and millions of lost people. That's right. that Southern Baptists are one of the main hopes of getting the gospel to our neighborhoods and our cities and our communities. And we've got to stay focused on the mission. What Satan can't destroy, he'll divide or distract. And we've got to stay focused and move forward. And I think state conventions on the national level can just can be that close connection relationally with the churches, but us together pointing towards the mission as a whole network.
That's good. Hance, what about you?
I agree totally with what Nathan said. I think the state convention helps to stay focused on mission and on the doctrinal foundations that we share and the real relationships. And sometimes at a national level, we talk about each other, but not to each other. We talk kind of in generalities, but at the state convention level, you're dealing with real people in real conversations. And that's where unity takes place. That's where gospel unity takes place.
David?
Yeah, I'll respond to that too. I think sometimes we forget too that most of our churches are 100 or less, 150 or less, and even though they're not here, they hear what's going on, and so we're supposed to, I think, as a convention, come back to them and kind of help them understand what does that mean from me, that they're asking those questions, and so we help kind of filter that. There's obviously some national relational things for us with North American Mission Board, IMB. We love Guidestone. For the future, all of us do, and those partnerships are key for what our churches actually do. But also, I think even our state conventions relating together with each other. Some of our the old-line states are partnering with newer work states to help them advance the gospel. SBT just had this proposal for monetary to help with some of those things. So that's occurring across those lines too. So it's not just local convention, national, but it's local convention, other conventions, national together.
I love this idea that we're united in Christ. We are committed to Christ's word, to the purpose of advancing the gospel together. That's really where we are as Baptists, as Southern Baptists. That's where we are at OBU. And I just want to thank each and every one of you for what God is doing in and through your leadership. And know at OBU, we're praying for you. We're praying for God to continue to multiply His work in and through the life of the local churches so that Christ is lifted high, the lost are reached, and we take the gospel to the nations together. So thank you all so much. Now, I do have something very special to announce. He doesn't know that I'm asking this to happen right now, but David Manor is an OBU alum. He has been in his role for just a few months, and we are delighted in light of his leadership and his many years of service. We are delighted to give to Dr. David Manor, the Herschel Hobbs Award for denominational service. This is well deserved.
That's awesome.
This is for you.
That's awesome.
David, we're so proud of you as an alum. We're excited about how you're leading, and we'll be praying for you in the years ahead. God bless you. Hance, Nathan, thank you all so much. Everyone, thank you for being here. We'll see you this afternoon at our next booth event.